might have missed some of the rares in our last video. There was an uncommon in the way that we...
Curse you, Siren Storm Tamer!
There was an uncommon that popped up in the midst of the rares on the Mythic spoiler page, and so we assumed, naturally so, that the rares were done. And that was not the case. So now, we will be completing the rares of Ixalan. Starting with...
the blood-crazed Paladin.
10 out of 10 name, by the way.
Yeah.
So what does it do?
It's a 1/1 for 1 and a black with flash. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each creature that died this turn.
So essentially morbid, right? If you're familiar with that mechanic. Flash is not something that black gets hardly ever.
Except on cards with this type of effect.
Right.
Which black does have a number of those.
So this guy, of course, cares about creatures dying. So those 1/1 tokens you're making off of legendary enchantment, anything you're doing to kill their creatures or to trade. This guy essentially says, you know, he makes your trades profitable, right? If you're both losing creatures, he then comes in and is bigger for each creature that died this turn. Yeah. So, I mean, not bad, really.
Mm-hmm. Then we have Captivating Crew. A 4/3 for 3 and a red. Pay 3 and a red. Gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. This does not require the creature to tap.
It does not.
It is pumpable.
And furthermore, if you're making infinite mana by any methods, you could essentially Insurrection every turn. Or each of your turns, rather. It is 4 mana. Most threatened effects are 3, but of course, since it's on a creature as an activated and something that can be used again and again, it makes sense that it would cost more mana.
Realistically, in like most constructed decks, you can expect to use this twice a turn.
Right.
Still pretty good. Gets 2 blockers out of the way. Honestly, what it's going to do is it's going to take their 2 biggest things that you can that aren't the Implacable Death Lizard.
Right.
It's going to take the 2 biggest things that you can, and rather than risk your creatures in the red zone of combat, it's just going to go, these 2 blockers are now going to face the rest of your blockers.
Right. So 8 mana being a bit much. Even if you only have like 6 mana, so you do this alongside a 2-drop, again, gets their biggest blocker out of the way, hits them with it, if it's also a good attacker. Really just kind of good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good and limited.
Oh yeah, huge, huge. Old Growth Dryads, however, is the definition of huge for its mana cost. It's a 3/3 for 1 green. However, it has a pretty big drawback.
It does.
When Old Growth Dryads enters the battlefield, each opponent may search his or her library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle his or her library.
So no chance of seeing this in Modern, since that 3 toughness is too big of a factor. But a 3/3 for 1 on turn 1, very aggressive. I don't know if this will end up seeing play. It's possible that it could see play in the right decks. Maybe. You definitely want some kind of Torpor Orb effect.
If there was some weird format where all the good cards in Vintage weren't good, but we still had all the dual lands, this card would be amazing.
Right.
But no such format exists.
So, will it see play? I doubt it. It's actually not bad in Limited because, you know, getting them an extra land is not necessarily going to kill you. Again, though, I just think it's too big of a drawback for what you're getting.
Sanguine Sacrament. Now, this card is worth looking at because it's 2 white and X for an instant. You gain twice X life. Put Sanguine Sacrament on the bottom of its owner's library so it can come around again.
Typically with effects like this, you would see them at sorcery speed. So the fact that this is an instant...
If it was sorcery, it'd be terrible.
Yeah, it's not insignificant. So, and gaining twice X life, also not insignificant. So you pay 5 mana into this, you get 6 life. That's enough to almost enough to activate the Vampire Legendary. So, yeah. Honestly, just a pretty solid card in a deck that wants to gain life.
Now we have every set, they usually make a overcosted bad counterspell that tries to tempt you by giving you some extra effect.
Right.
However, no one ever uses it because it's an overcosted bad counterspell.
Well, Rewind is the one that got there.
But I mean, it technically doesn't cost anything.
It technically doesn't cost anything. This one costs something, but let's just go ahead and read it.
It technically might not cast anything if it resolves, but even so, it's just not Counter target spell for 3 and 2 blue.
It still counters a spell.
Create X colorless treasure artifact tokens, where X is that spell's converted mana cost.
Right. And of course, they have the usual sacrifice for 1 mana of any color. Now, of course, the card that this reminds me the most of from recently is
the card is called Spell Swindle, by the way.
Right. Where the card from, I believe it was Shadows, where you countered and got that many clue tokens.
Yes.
So with
this is
clue
objectively
tokens,
better than that,
yes.
though, because you're paying a ton of mana for things that cost mana.
Right.
You're paying a ton of mana to get some mana.
That card was essentially trying to tempt you into, counter this, draw 3 cards kind of thing. This card is saying counter it, and then it's, if you think about it, it's almost kind of trying to be a much worse mana drain. Where mana drain counters a spell, gets you that much mana your next turn, equal to its CMC. This says, pay 5, but get that many, again, and they're treasure, so they have potentially other applications.
Now, if this costs 4, or if it costs 3, this card would be retarded.
Now, this with Inspiring Statuary, where you wouldn't have to sacrifice the treasure tokens.
But, yeah, as it is, I think if they were to make it cost like 4 or 3, and instead of getting the CMC worth, you get a fixed number.
Right.
I think that would actually have been much better.
Well,
I could see thematically, flavor-wise, why they went this route. But
yeah.
if you wanted a card that was just better and more versatile, you would make it 4 mana or 3 mana and give you treasure equal to the CMC of the spell Swindle. It's a counter spell that ramps you.
Or 3 of them. It would be probably the normal number. I like this better as X for the set, because if you remember from our discussion of the Mythics, there are a lot of very expensive cards in this set.
There are.
More than I think most sets.
Yeah, and I guess at the bottom of this, I have to look at it and think it might be usable, because at the end of the day, costs or no, it is nonetheless a counter spell that ramps you.
Right, which is very hard to come by.
Even if you counter a CMC 2, you have 2 more mana next turn.
Right. Or potentially even more mana for another counterspell that same turn.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really need to stop them.
Yeah. But so
as
I
far
can't
as
frown
commander
on it
playability?
as much. But it feels very similar to me to all the, we're going to print a 5 CMC counterspell that's not that great.
Might see play, definitely I think goes well in Commander with the size of things that get cast in Commander.
Counter an Ulamog.
Counter an Ulamog, or counter a Crater Hoof Behemoth. Get a turn's worth of mana.
Yeah, that would actually...
Counter a Tooth and Nail.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now a card that shows up all over the social media, Sanctum Seeker. Probably the vampire of the set.
Oh. And the way that Ripjaw Raptor is, in my opinion, the dinosaur, this is the vampire.
Yeah. It is a 3/4 for 4 Vampire Knight, so it loses the fight to the Raptor. But whenever a vampire you control attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So in Commander, this is huge because you can get around things that have like a lot of blockers or scary things.
Yep. As long
like
as
if we're building Commander decks out of the tribes here.
Right.
So we have a Pirate Commander deck, we have a Vampire Commander deck, we have a Dinosaur Commander deck. The Vampires are not going to want to swing at the Dinosaurs. They're going to lose that fight most of the time. But this helps. You could swing down on the Pirates more than likely.
Right.
And this guy helps you bleed them out.
So, this guy, in a Karlov deck that was Vampire Tribal, could be very... Now, see, the thing that this reminds me of is Hell Rider. Hell Rider was 2 and 2 red for a 3/3, I think, with haste. It said whenever a creature you controlled attacked, the defending player, I think it was took 1 damage because it was red. I doubt it was life loss. But this is just better. Really, because they lose life, so it's not like the damage can be prevented. And then you gain 1 life for each vampire. It's honestly the new vampire decks that just came out for Commander. With Edgar Markov, Alicia.
With all the tokens Edgar makes.
Oh yeah, all of those.
Bleed people.
Love this card. I'm almost surprised he didn't make it into that set.
And this is actually very on flavor. I took some time before we got together today to read the flavor text of every card in this set. To just learn everything I could about the flavor of the set. And one of the things I found really interesting is the vampires in this plane of Ixalan. They only drink the blood of the heretic and of the enemy of the state.
Ah.
And so this is very flavorful because it's bleeding your enemies.
And I mean, vampire knights are just cool.
It also explains the other card that we were talking about earlier, the card draw.
Right.
Where it's bleeding your enemies instead of bleeding you.
Right. Again, making it more viable for the vampire legendary to pay 7 life, any number of things. So.
Then we have the rampaging Ferocidon.
Heck of a name.
Yeah, it's a 3/3 for 3, so you're automatically getting equity. It has menace.
Even better.
Players can't gain life. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, rampaging Ferocidon deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. It's a Eidolon of the Great Revel for creatures only.
It's like a reverse Soul Sisters. Everything that Soul Sisters wants to do, this wants to hate on.
You know, though, in certain burn decks that aren't making a ton of creatures, this could be a great sideboard card against Soul Sisters or something like that, because the Soul Sisters get shut off entirely, and it bleeds them for it.
Anytime you print a card that says players or opponents can't gain life, the modern burn deck, the modern vintage deck has to look at that card and consider it to see how playable it is.
Even if they throw it out immediately, they have to go, well...
Because, I mean, Skullcrack, Atarka's command was the same way. The ability to stop your opponent from gaining life is very powerful in burn.
Yes. Now, the next card is actually really interesting. It's an enchantment, non-legendary. Shaper's Sanctuary.
Ah, yes.
Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell or ability opponent controls, you may draw a card. It's 1 drop, so you could, if you had like a weird hand, you could have 4 of these out by turn 3.
Yes. So here's the thing about this card. It's very reminiscent of another card, Rain Academy Chancellor, which was an old blue legendary that said, whenever one of your things is targeted, draw a card. If she's enchanted, draw 2. So it makes sense that this would end up being in green, but showing Merfolk, which are a traditionally blue tribe, even though they're shifted into green and blue for this.
The Merfolk are very simic here because they harness nature. Is their shtick.
The second thing that it's reminiscent of is Multani's Presence. 1-drop green enchantment that says whenever a spell you control is countered, draw a card.
Yes.
This essentially is a card that wants to punish your opponent or essentially help you for your opponent trying to kill your things.
Or counter
We all
your
have
things,
to admit that as great as Gishath is, he can get killed by a kill spell. A kill spell, a counter spell, you name it. There are ways to kill the guy. But this Shaper's Sanctuary says, you can kill my stuff, but I'm still going to get more stuff to play.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to keep killing my stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly, phenomenal card.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the green. It's part of Leovold on an enchantment.
Right.
Next we have Kinjali's Sunwing. I almost said Kijali. That's something completely different.
But Kinyali, depending, maybe.
It's probably Kinjali.
Probably Kinjali.
It's a flying 2/3 dinosaur for 2 and a white. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped.
There it is. The
old imposing sovereign.
Imposing sovereign. The old blind obedience effect. Man. Okay. So let's take this top to bottom. 3 mana for a 2/3 with flying. Okay.
That's pretty
2/3
pretty
flying
alright.
for 3. Pretty good. Creatures you control enter the battlefield tapped. What does that actually do for you?
Any haste they've got is done.
Okay.
It means they can't top deck a blocker.
Right.
And that's pretty much what it means.
So this is an intrinsically aggressive card.
It slows your
opponent down by saying, okay, my stuff doesn't give your stuff haste, but it means that they have more trouble blocking.
Their stuff has anti-haste.
Essentially, yeah. So if you have this out and Regisar Alpha, where your stuff has haste and their stuff enters tapped, you've essentially created an Urabrask situation.
Yes.
Urabrask the Hidden, where you're now twice as fast and they're now half as fast. Which, in a deck that's trying to overrun with dinosaurs, I'm honestly surprised that the dinosaurs got this good of a card at that mana. You would think that all of the dinosaurs, being dinosaurs, had to only be good at expensive mana costs, But we see here with this 3-drop flying creature that that's not the case.
Yeah.
That you can print good dinosaurs, a traditionally large tribe, at a low CMC.
Mm-hmm. Then we have, we're going to skip Deadeye Quartermaster because that's another uncommon slumming it in here. Revel in Riches, one of the earliest cards that was leaked. It's pretty interesting.
Very flavorful.
I originally misread it because it was on the leaked spoiled sheet. I thought it was 1 in a black, and I was wetting myself with excitement. But it's 4 in a black. It's still pretty good, but it's not 1 in a black good. It's an enchantment that says whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token. It has the usual sacrifice to add mana ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. I guarantee someone's going to try to build a deck with that one land.
Yep.
And with all the things that let you spit out treasures with that counter spell to just
treasure
sit there
map,
and go.
counter spell.
Yeah. the card is the what's it called?
Here's the thing.
The spell swindle is going to try to swindle you into reveling in riches.
Right. So here's the long and short of this card. It's going to be difficult for your opponent to stop it, right? If they blow up the enchantment, that's one thing. But as far as like actually trying to destroy your treasures,
and it's not legendary, so you can stack it.
So if they try to destroy your treasures, that's not really going to work. So the thing you're investing in, the riches you're investing in, aren't things that are just easy to get rid of, right? It's not like they're gonna, destroy them one at a time with a different spell for each artifact, right?
Unless they like unleash the gremlins on them.
Yeah.
In which case you go, hey, look, all this mana I suddenly have, and hopefully you'll throw it onto something.
So will it be competitive? But it could certainly work at a local F&M.
Oh yeah. Next we have a pirate legendary that is probably not the pirate legendary that you want to use. Because she's monocolored and it doesn't give you access to all the pirates.
She does appear in a lot of the flavor texts, though.
She does. Captain Lannery Storm. It's a legendary human pirate, a 2/2 for 2 and a red, with haste.
Gotta love haste.
Whenever she attacks, you make a treasure token. And whenever you sacrifice a treasure, she gets +1/+0 until end of turn.
So she's two things in one. There was, of course, a card, Tireless Tracker, in whenever you sacrifice a clue token, got bigger. She's, of course, red, so she doesn't get the bonus permanently. It's more of a combat thing. But she's also, there was a card not too long ago that when it attacked, the next spell you cast costs 1 less to cast. So she's kind of both of these effects in one, where when she attacks, you essentially get mana. I mean, red does not have mana dorks. This is kind of the closest thing we're going to see to that in red.
I think the problem with her as a commander is she wants to have treasure tokens, and there's a lot of the treasure creating effects not in her color.
That is true. So she would have
like Revel in Riches is not in her color. Spell Swindle, not in her color.
Right.
So she would go into the pirate deck along with Revel and Swindle and all that other stuff, but she would not be at the helm.
So if you're wanting an aggressive red deck that has enough mana to continue being aggressive, she's not actually a bad choice. She does have haste. She can attack right away. She can pump herself right away. If you want to attack for 3 instead of 2, you can sacrifice before damage. You can have more mana for your next turn to maybe play a 5-drop red threat, or a 2-drop and a 3-drop. Honestly, in an aggressive red deck, mono red deck, not a bad choice.
Now, talking about aggressive, we have the Verdant Sun's Avatar. As you mentioned before, lacking keywords, it's a 5/5 for 7. Whenever Verdant Sun's Avatar or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness.
Let me tell you how I feel about this card. I feel really good about this card. So here's what it does right. It counts itself, which there's, of course, a lot of positive effects where creatures don't count themselves.
Yeah.
It does, and then it continues, again, to give you free value every turn thereafter, right? With the White Sun's Avatar and the Red Sun's Avatar, which we haven't gotten to yet, they do their value immediately, but then they're just creatures. They're just fatties. This is another one of those Registar Alpha type effects where you continue to get value in subsequent turns without requiring an additional investment. And of course, you know, the ability reminiscent of Tristani, which was the same thing, gain life equal to their toughness. Again, a very interesting fact that Wizards felt the need for Dinosaurs with Huatli and this to have some means of gaining life.
Next we have the Tocatli Honor Guard. Creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger.
Now, what is a Hate Bear?
For a 1/3 for 1 and a white.
A Hate Bear is a 2-drop creature that somehow slows or hinders your opponent. Creatures entering the battlefield not causing abilities to trigger is huge. It's essentially Torpor Orb. So
Yeah.
if we think about that card that we said was bad before, unless you had Torpor Orb, there it was. The 1 green 3/3 Dryad. If you play this turn 2, and then the next turn play 2 of those 3/3 Dryads, with your opponent not gaining life because of this, or not gaining land, rather, not such a bad idea.
Yeah, I think in traditional Hate Bears archetypes, though, they do utilize certain ETB creatures. But not... It depends on the brew. So this could fit well if you're running, like, Thalia and Gaddock Teague and things like that. But if you're running, like, Harmonic Sliver or other ETB-type stuff, not as much. But this will fit comfortably in certain Hate Bear decks.
So... ultimately, I think this is going to be a sideboard card in competitive Standard. It stops all the Sun's avatars, it stops a lot of kind of traditional creature-based strategies, as a lot of them rely on ETBs. If you mix it with, you know, the white dinosaur that we just talked about, the wing dinosaur, you could set up for kind of a mean kind of white lockdown.
Yeah, we
deck.
Actually have Hate Bearer type technology.
Right. I think this will be a very common thing to see in sideboards.
Yeah. We're going to skip this next one. We'll come back to it out of respect. The next rare we're going to talk about is Deadeye Tracker. It's a human pirate. You pay 1 and a black, exile 2 target cards from an opponent's graveyard. Deadeye Tracker explores. This is the first time we've encountered this mechanic in our review.
And we forgot to mention, he is a 1/1 for a single black.
Yes. And so you can play him on turn 1 and activate him for turn 2, but you do have to exile 2 target cards
from an opponent's graveyard.
not up to 2.
Very unlikely you'll get to play his ability on turn 2, but still very possible. So what is Explore?
Explore says, reveal the top card of your library. Put that card into your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Then put the card back, or put it into your graveyard.
So it's just kind of the whole package, right? If it's a land, you get to draw it, so you don't have to just top deck a land the next turn. You have more land to play with. If it's not a land, the creature gets a counter. Then you actually have the choice of, do I want to draw this card, or do I want to put it in my graveyard? Again, seeing the same thing of almost a better version of Scry, in a way.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, in the previous part, you can throw an Aftermath card away. You can do some stuff with
throw a
this
Madness card away.
And it's like, it doesn't seem like it's a huge deal for a rare, but I think this is probably one of the junkiest rares we've seen.
Well, but it also does interfere with graveyard strats.
It can be used in
Right.
certain,
Very
admittedly more narrow strategies.
This is one of those pirates that doesn't really want to attack because he taps for his ability.
Yeah.
So what you're going to see this guy in is, you might see him against decks that want to use their graveyard, right? So for instance, if you're, even in Commander, if your opponent is on a Golgari or Abzan, you know, Carador or Maren, you know, reanimation plan, this guy's kind of a big problem for them. Because, I mean, it's 2 cards essentially every turn.
2 mana for 2 cards, yeah. It's a 1/1 that'll get really annoying really fast.
Well, and as far as pirates attacking, it can get bigger with time to the point where it eventually becomes a threat.
So, the next we have is the red avatar, the Burning Sun's avatar, which costs 3 and 3 red for a 6/6, so it's the first avatar we have that has equal CMC to power toughness. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to target opponent, and 3 damage to up to 1 target creature. Up to 1 is nice because if it's alone, you don't want it to hit itself.
Right. So, this card does a lot of things right.
Yes.
But it also does some things wrong as someone planning to play the Dino decks. Here's the problems with this card. It is 3 mana of a single color, which in what is probably going to be a 3-color deck is a little hard to pull off. You need really good, land bases. Not impossible, just a little tougher. Here's what it gets right. It does proc off of Gishath, where the White Sun's Avatar does not.
Yes.
This one does. It's worse than Inferno Titan because it's not divided, A, and B, it doesn't get it again when it attacks. So that's a knock against it. But where it is advantageous is it doesn't say 3 damage to up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. You can hit your own dinosaur with this as an enrage trigger.
Yes.
And if you're hitting something like Riptide or Ripjaw Raptor, if you know when you're going to play this, if you've already done combat to where, you're not going to want to block with it or attack with it later, etc., as long as realize you're not killing your own thing, you can use this as a means of activating Enrage. So this again, what would really make this card playable for me would be a keyword. If it had Trample, if it had Haste, if it had something. But at the end of the day, after its trigger, it's just a 6/6, which is a funny thing to say, but given all the other large creatures we have in this set
That have keywords.
that do have keywords, I'm not actually sure if this is a guarantee in the dinosaur deck.
Now, if you're not running tricolor dinosaurs, because I was talking with our friend Raph, he's very certain that Boros dinosaurs are where it's at. And I think there's good argument for Boros dinosaurs. There's good argument for Gruul dinosaurs as well.
Yes.
Maybe Selesnya dinosaurs. Maybe.
And you have to remember that he is in some form a removal spell of a certain amount, but he can kill like a 4/3 or any number of things.
You're paying 6 mana for 6 damage and a 6/6 body.
Right. So you're essentially paying 6, getting 12.
Yes. Alright, the next rare is the Waker of the Wilds. It's a 3/3 for 4. You pay 2 green and X. Put X 1/1 counters on target land you control. That land becomes a 0/0 elemental creature token with haste. It's still a land. This does not end in a turn. This little Merfolk Shaman, I think, is a pretty good rare. It's a permanent awaken.
Yeah.
It gives the land haste. So even if it's a fresh land, you can get going.
Get going on that.
And you can make it as big as you want, and you can continue to make it bigger if you want to.
Right. You can put counters on the same land.
You could even make it a 1/1 blocker.
Not bad. So this has some applications. Its drawback is that it does require 2 green every time you want to do it, in addition to the X. It itself is just a 3/3 with no, kind of relevant keyword, so you might not necessarily want to be attacking or blocking with this thing.
No, she's sitting back waking the wilds.
Right. The biggest knock I have against her is honestly just that Battle for Zendikar is rotating out. Battle for Zendikar had a bunch of cards that said, your land creatures, get buffs or keywords or, Sylvan Advocate even.
Yeah.
She would love to be in a set with Sylvan Advocate. But again, that might be the reason they waited to bring her out until now. She may have actually been too good in that format. Potentially. I see her seeing some play. But I think that the cost of her activated is just a little prohibitive.
Alright, and then we have Priest of the Awakening Sun, which is a little, it's pretty interesting, actually.
Love the art.
Yeah. Praise the sun.
Praise the sun.
It's a 1/1 for 1 white, so automatically we're going to get checked to see if it's any good. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may reveal a dinosaur card from your hand. If you do, you gain 2 life.
Okay, so it's not like you have
it's
to reveal...
forecast the dinosaur to gain 2 life.
Yeah. Again, another dinosaur-ish card that wants you to gain life. So here's the thing. Traditionally, with an effect like this, I would expect it to be reveal the top card of your library. A kinship kind of thing. No, you can just hold 1 expensive dino and keep revealing the same dinosaur.
Look at this Gishath that I
look
have.
at this Gishath I'm going to be playing in about 5 turns, right? But the thing is, multiple iterations of this guy are worth playing. Having 4 of this guy out is better than having 1 of this guy
4,
out.
6, 8.
Just reveal Gishath to each one, right? And then you just gain 8 life. Like, you're not upset to see more than one copy of this guy.
No.
That's what I'm saying. So, finally, sorry, didn't mean to...
Especially considering his second ability.
Yes.
You could pay 2 white and 3, sacrifice the priest.
3 white.
It's 2 white and 3.
Oh, 2 white and 3, right.
Yeah, 2 white and 3.
I messed up.
Sacrifice the priest of the Awakening Sun. Search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So you can reveal a dinosaur, gain life, and then when you feel necessary, you can crack the priest to go get a dinosaur.
So here's the thing that makes this guy a good design. Eventually, you're going to want to play all your dinosaurs, even the ones, especially the ones from your opening hand. So there comes a point in the game where you have to acknowledge, unless you're drawing a lot of cards, you've run out of dinosaurs.
To reveal.
Right, to reveal. So you can no longer gain life. So, and then eventually, certain decks, if you're not drawing enough cards, you may simply run out of things to do. Again, there is a very real problem of you may ramp, and then nothing. Or they kill your threat that you were playing, and now what do? This guy is a late game option to essentially give you something to do with the fact that you've been ramping.
Yeah.
So if they've killed your threats, if you don't have a hand left, if you've literally got nothing else going on, right? This guy says he's an expensive effect. He's 5 mana, but he says, you know, have a dinosaur to play next turn, right? Do something.
Yeah.
Go get Gishath and get some more dinos. So
then we have Entrancing Melody. It's a sorcery, 2 blue X. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X.
Pretty pure design, really.
Yeah.
Just does right what it says on the card. How confident do you feel that this will see play in Standard?
It depends on a couple of things. And I think that's kind of been the sentiment on a lot of stuff.
Yes.
It doesn't just depend upon the deck that it would go in. It depends on the decks that it would face. Right. So it depends on what type of control deck emerges in the format, because that's what would use this.
I do think now is the time for control, though.
Yeah, I think
control has a lot of
control has suffered ever since Ravnica Theros left.
Yes.
There was a brief moment where we had the Esper Dragons in cons, but that is, at its core, it killed you with dragons.
Right.
But, so it depends on the control deck, it also depends on the aggro deck, because if it's not worth stealing something with this, if they're running just a bunch of little piddly things that aren't worth taking, and putting this card slot in there...
Well, if they top out at 3, and you take one of their 3 drops, that could be a bit of a blow, considering it only cost you 5 mana.
But if they're running a bunch of 3 drops, they're going to be going more wide.
Also true.
If they're in on a fatty, though, the control deck's going to have to be able to get to the mana.
Right.
Maybe they're swindling.
So again, the Merfolk deck kind of wants to ramp.
Yeah.
In just the same way that the Dinosaur deck does to play their fatties, Merfolk deck want to ramp for different reasons.
Yeah, so the control deck, I think, would actually have small evasive creatures to get maybe the 3 mana land, so that they can funnel into these more expensive cards.
Yes.
But that's if the environment's right for that, and I don't know that it is or not, because we still have a lot. Here's the thing. There's a lot of decks that exist now that some of them are going to be hurt by rotation, but a lot of them aren't.
I've already seen lists online for rotation-proof decks.
Yeah. And you have some decks like Mardu Vehicles is mostly untouched. I mean, they're going to lose some things.
Yeah, I mean, they lost Smuggler's Copter a while ago, but that
rotation's not going to kill them too much. I mean, we're losing Gideon, which we need to. Gideon's been around for a year.
If it wasn't obvious, if you're not running main board artifact removal, you need to be running at least sideboard artifact removal.
Yes.
Because there are going to be artifacts in this meta.
Hands down. So again, with Entrancing Melody, this card is going to have to sit back and see what the meta becomes before we can say whether it's good or not. Because this is not like the Azorius/Esper control deck of Ravnica, where you would Ulta Jace, steal the best card out of their deck, and play it. Because this is a one-off, and you're not looking for their best card, you're looking for the best card that they have now.
And I think for a control player, you probably couldn't feel great about running this card main board, because when you sit down with someone, you don't know that they're playing a creature-based strategy.
Exactly. This could be sideboard, and only if fatty decks are prevalent.
Right. Which, very possible.
It's very possible, but we'll have to see.
Right.
Because there still are going to be a lot of... If we're looking at this set in a vacuum, fatty decks are a thing that's possible, but not guaranteed. But we also have to think about all the low-to-the-ground decks that are currently in the meta already, which makes fatty decks even less likely.
The one thing we did fail to mention with Entrancing Melody, it is an X-cost sorcery. So Baral or the artifacts that cheapen instants and sorceries will make it so that you would have to only pay less for that X-cost.
That is true.
So
that makes it more menacing. Like this pirate, the Fathom Fleet Captain, which has menace.
It's
a 2/1 for 2.
Human pirate.
Yeah.
Good so far.
It's a Snapcaster type body.
Yep.
But it's not really a Snapcaster type effect.
No.
Whenever Fathom Fleet Captain attacks, if you control another non-token pirate, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, you create a 2/2 black pirate token with menace.
So again, we see the 2/2 black pirate token with menace. So what we have so far, if correct me if I'm wrong, is we have a 1/1 vampire token with lifelink, a 2/2 pirate token with menace, and a 3/3 dino token with trample.
Yes.
Right? So it seems like there are multiple effects that are creating these types of tokens.
Yeah.
So how good is this card? I mean, the menace is really nice.
Yeah, the menace is good. It helps it get there, which being a 2/1, the menace is very helpful for that. If we have a low to the ground pirate aggro deck, which I think is possible.
Very possible.
Or we might just have a low to the ground good stuff deck. It makes another menace creature.
I mean, honestly, I've seen a lot of cards with menace. We could see a deck where every creature has menace.
And I think the saving grace of this card is that it replaces itself with a creature that is better, even if it never connects.
That is true. That is true.
Because it's when it attacks. It doesn't have to connect. So basically, you drop this guy on turn 2, you swing in, and when he attacks, you make the token, because that's going to be 4 blocks, so you have to decide then. You make the token, and then he can either connect or not, but he's done. You've gotten all the value you can out of him, aside from just the fact that he's a menace 2/1.
So let's take a practical application. Say you drop this guy on turn 2, and then on turn 3, you play a land. You have an option of either playing a 3-drop or using his ability. In my opinion, the right thing to do would be to use his ability, because that would maintain the number of cards you have in hand for later.
Yeah.
You could essentially just get 3 cards off of him, and thereby maintain the cards you already have in your hand.
Yeah. There's something to be said for pacing yourself in a game. It's the same kind of idea. It's not quite the same, but it's the same sort of thought as like Pack Rat, where you can put 1 card down and you can see how far that card can take you. And this is one of those cards where if they don't block him, if they don't put 2 creatures in front of him to kill him, because if they put 1 power and then anything else in front of him, he's going to die.
Right.
Unless you...
Easy to kill. Hard
unless
to block.
you're running a Pirate Lord, in which case it's a 3/2, and that's a lot more menacing.
Or a goat, or a ship that pumps all your pirates.
I mean, it doesn't improve his toughness. I'm more concerned with keeping him alive.
That is true.
To swing again. Alive to fight another combat phase.
Right.
And if you can do that, he's going to keep churning out 2/2s that themselves have menace.
Right.
And so I could see if this guy's not answered, he could become a quick problem.
There's a reason that he has the rank of captain. I mean, it's you drop him and you continue to get value off of him.
He keeps drumming up more recruits.
Essentially builds you an army. So
now, speaking of a pirate that is definitely pretty interesting, Angrath's Marauders. Angrath, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a Minotaur planeswalker who is trapped on the plane of Ixalan. He's the only Minotaur on the plane.
So, if he's the only Minotaur on the plane, we can probably assume he's not native to Ixalan.
No, he's not.
Because he wouldn't have had any Minotaurs to come from.
Yeah, he's the only Minotaur on the plane. He's from somewhere else. He's trapped here. And his abilities are actually really interesting.
Really?
If you haven't read the Magic story, he uses chains that through his magic he makes red hot, and he controls them, not just like whipping them, but they move.
Wow.
And his body looks like it's half molten.
That's cool.
It's very Boros looking.
So Angrath, they'll probably be Rakdos, as we've seen a lot of the Minotaurs in the past be in Rakdos.
But his whole shtick, as the flavor text here, it says, Captain Angrath cares less about treasure than mayhem. If he can't leave Ixalan, he'll burn the plane down.
Lofty goal.
And similar to their captain, Angrass Marauders is a 5 and 2 red human pirate 4/4. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. This can be double-edged, because if something hits you, if something hits your creatures, it is still double. It's not just to your opponents, because mayhem.
So, very high risk, high reward kind of card. I could easily see this just drop it and win the game.
Yeah, this is a win more card. This is to go, I have nearly enough to kill you, now I have enough to kill you. If I've been Fathom Fleet captaining for a while and I have a bunch of Menace Pirates.
And you'll notice it's a 4/4 for 7 without any evasion. So you're already kind of thinking that this isn't the kind of thing that's just supposed to, you know, stick around and continue doing work. You know, this is essentially supposed to
enable what else you have
to
win the game.
Yeah, just kind of make the rest of your deck even that much more problematic for your opponent.
Alright, now we have an interesting card.
Ah, this guy.
The Deeproot Champion.
I think he's flying under the radar.
We'll have to see, because he's another one of those cards that's going to be dependent upon the deck that he's put into. Deeproot Champion is a 1/1 for 1 and a green Merfolk Shaman. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Deeproot Champion. This is a guy I could see use the Dowsing Blade very well, because you drop him down, on the next turn you drop down the blade, he gets a counter, so he's a 2/2. Assuming you've done no other ramp this game, the next turn you equip the blade, he's now a 3, he's now a 4/3.
Yep.
That's going to attack, munch his way through whatever plants you got going on over there, and he'll be a pretty significant threat, and that's assuming you haven't played other things.
So the thing that I like about this guy is he doesn't say instant or sorcery. He says non-creature, which means
artifacts,
all those enchantments, artifacts,
vehicles,
planeswalkers, anything that's not a creature that is a spell is going to make this guy better. Which means he goes in tons of decks.
Yeah.
If you have a Brawl instant and sorcery deck, he could go in there. If you have just kind of a traditional kind of Merfolk tribal, but also, you know, running enchantments, artifacts, that nature, he's good in a lot of different strategies.
He strikes me as a card that would exist in one of 2 deck archetypes, and the first one is the kind that I would say you would see in Standard, which is more of a mid-range type of deck, where you're going to drop him early, and then you're going to use spells and get him big enough to matter.
So would that be a tempo deck as well, or
maybe tempo, maybe not. It depends on what all you're casting. You could just make it a Tron deck with all kinds of equipment and just make him big and then give him a bunch of stuff. It just he doesn't really care what it is. It's more the style of play of I'm going to try to grind this out.
Right.
The other type of format, which would not be in Standard, if for some reason someone wanted to get frisky and use him in some other Eternal format like Modern, would be like a Delver type deck where you're spitting out lots of spells on the fast.
Right, some kind of, you know, now the Gitaxian Probe is banned, a little worse, but at the same time, it's essentially permanent prowess.
Other Phyrexian style spells like the Mutagenic Growth would be great for him, because suddenly he's a 5/5.
And again, he slots well into the older Simic style decks for Commander because he cares about +1 counters. Vorl of the Whole Clade, Fathom Mage, all those older Simic cards loved caring about +1 counters.
Now, is he good enough for a competitive Commander deck? I don't think so. But
he can get pretty big.
He can get big, but those types of effects, Commander, you want to get more out of something, other than just making my minion grow.
Right.
Let's see. Are we out of rares? No, we have Ashes of the Abhorrent. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or activate abilities of cards in graveyards. Whenever a creature dies, you gain 1 life, 1 and a white. We have so much hate in this set. There's going to be... I think the control deck of this set is not going to be counter magic. It's going to be hate bears.
Yep.
We're going to see your creatures that are tapped. Your creatures don't trigger anything. Your stuff can't reanimate or be flashed back.
Authority of the Consoles, 1 white.
Authority of the Consoles, your stuff enter taps and I gain life off of it.
It's ridiculous.
And we're going to hit you in the... Yeah, we're going to see that deck.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally.
It's this deck, because all of its stuff is 2-drops, we're going to see the artifact that says I'm going to look at your hand and shut down a card out of it.
Ah, right.
It's going to splash black for duress. There's going to be an Orzhov hate deck.
With potentially blue as well, depending on if they want the traditional effect. So the thing about this card, traditionally an effect like this would say something to the effect of cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities. This doesn't say that. This just says players can't cast spells from graveyards or activate abilities. So abilities, what are we looking at? So that applies to Aftermath cards. That applies to, for instance, that raid card that lets you pay 5 to get it back, something like that. Again, we have cards in this set that have ways of getting things into your graveyard for use once they're there.
Yeah.
This essentially is a phenomenal, what I would say, sideboard card that also gets some value in the main board if you decide to run it there.
Yeah, I could see it being main board because if you're running turn 1 authority, turn 2 this.
Yes.
A creature is gaining you life when it enters and when it leaves.
Yep. So it's really not at all a bad card. Definitely going to see it in the sideboard of, again, or main board of those styles of decks.
Now we have Herald of the Secret Streams, which, looking back at the previous Merfolk Shaman, this guy will make him more relevant.
Much more relevant.
Because he's a 2/3 with a 3 and a blue mana cost that says creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked.
Again,
this guy's the all-star of the Merfolk decks.
Right.
Because so many Merfolk have ways of putting counters on things. Heck, the Merfolk Shaman that wakes up your lands goes, I can just make a 1/1 land. It can't be blocked. Whee!
So, it's no Master of Waves. But where Master of Waves gave you an army to win with, this guy takes the army you already have and makes them win you the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, and honestly, 4 mana for what is potentially your entire field being unblockable, pretty good effect.
Oh yeah. Then we have Ruin Raider, which is a 3/2 for 2 and a black. It has Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature this turn, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to the card's converted mana cost. So it's a mandatory Dark Confidant that it triggers off of Raid.
Right.
So how do we feel about this?
I do not think that an aggressive red-black pirate deck would care about losing life. I've played aggro enough times and ended the game at 20 life to know that life, even for an aggro deck, is just a resource in a lot of ways. This card is very good. The problem that traditional aggro runs into is that it runs out of cards. So this guy says, hey, you attacked? I've got an idea. Why don't you draw some cards off of that so you have even more stuff to attack with next time? Again, you don't have to pay mana for this ability. It's free. You can play him and trigger him in the exact same turn. So honestly,
as long as he lives,
I think this is an aggro all-star. If I'm being real, because
it's attack with the creatures, not just him attacking.
Not
so
just
he
him.
doesn't have to attack. He can just hang back and go, raid some ruins, boys.
And with a lot of the pirates we've seen so far having menace, this guy is really going to do a lot for... Because, I mean, think about it. You're playing him in an aggro deck. The most you're going to lose life off of the top part of your deck is maximum 4. Average, probably 2, maybe 3. And then if you draw land, well, then that draws you past the land to get more action, right? So, in a lot of ways, this guy is exactly what the engine that the pirate deck needs to keep on the pressure.
Let's look at Emperor's Vanguard. It's a human scout for 3 and a green. It's a 4/3. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it explores.
I really want that guy's headpiece.
This, to me, it's not a terrible card. I'd classify it more on the junky side of the rares of this set.
It's a 4/3 without evasion for 4, so there's a couple problems there.
It has to connect.
It has to connect to have value, so in that light, you could say it's vanilla if you're cynical. The real problem here is the toughness. It's 4 power, so they're hesitant to block it, because they'll probably have to trade, especially at that point in the game. But the 3 toughness is what really does it in. It's very easy to kill, and again, your opponent knows that it has to connect in order for you to have value. Now, say you drop it into early in the game into a kind of a less populated board state where your opponent has maybe a 2/2 and a 1/3 and doesn't really want to block it. Well then, yeah, 4 damage is not bad, especially in like a limited environment. So what I see this guy as is I see this guy as great for limited because every time he hits, you explore. That's just free card advantage. Either you're drawing a land or you're putting a counter on this guy to make him even less blockable next time.
Yeah.
So I think if they had given this guy a keyword like trample, he might have been too good.
Yeah. All right, let's see.
For the cost.
We'll back up just a little bit and we'll talk about Kopala, Warden of Waves. Professor, we're sorry.
I don't remember what I said, or what he said, or what anyone said.
He was very excited to spoil this card. It was his spoiler card.
Right.
But then the leak happened, it was leaked out.
Got it.
He was
That's
not too happy about that.
That's very disappointing.
Because this card is probably one of the best cards in the set.
Yeah.
It's going to revolutionize Merfolk decks, not just in Standard, not just in Modern, but in Legacy as well.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's going to replace Kira the Glass Spinner in all of those decks.
I do remember Kira. I played against a Kira Commander deck once that was very tough to deal with.
Well, we're talking about just Modern and Legacy, Merfolk, which share a very similar deck list, and they both run Kira. This guy's going to replace it because he's a Merfolk, so he's going to benefit off of all the tribal effects.
So let's go ahead and read what he does.
He's a 2 blue and 1 for a 2/2 legendary Merfolk wizard. Spells your opponent's cast that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more to cast.
Including himself.
Abilities your opponents activate that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more to activate.
Also very relevant.
Yeah.
So yeah, what does this guy do? He protects your team from specifically targeted removal.
He's not quite a Kira the Glass Spinner that just says counter the first thing that targets them.
Right.
But yeah, he's not automatically countering it, but Kira stops one spell and doesn't stop the second. This makes both spells more expensive.
So think about this in the light of Standard. Say someone plays a Burning Sun's Avatar on turn 6. They don't have the 2 mana to pay to bolt one of your Merfolk. So there's a lot of cases where...
Well, it's an activated ability.
Oh, really? Oh, it's not a triggered ability?
Yeah.
Cast a spell? Okay, right. So I was incorrect about that. But again, the way that this affects your opponent's spot removal is very, very good.
Yes. Even if you have a 2 mana spot removal, it's not a 4 mana spot removal.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So this card is going to heavily influence Merfolk from here on out.
I couldn't see any Merfolk decks in Standard not wanting that guy.
Now we're going to talk about another spicy, hot card, Sunbird's Invocation. It's an enchantment for 5 and a red. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. You may cast a card revealed this way with converted mana cost X or less without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This card seems really good. Even for maybe Standard if you're running something weird and janky with high CMCs, but especially for Commander, this card is just going to be phenomenally good. But my prediction is that we're going to see this card in Standard. Because Approach of the Second Sun is a card. So how this works, you may have already seen this explained on the internet. You would have Sunbird's Invocation, which costs 5 and a red. And Approach, I think, costs 6 and a white.
Yes.
I think it costs 6 and a white. So it's the next turn,
right?
Assuming you have your land. And you'd probably run some way to ramp into it, which you can run the compass to go get stuff.
You sure can.
So, get your land, get this out. Next turn, you cast Approach of the Second Sun. It's on the stack. So, with it on the stack, this triggers Sunbird's Invocation. You look at the top 7 cards of your library, and you pray to Urza that there is another Approach of the Second Sun in the top 7. That one casts for free, It's the first one you've cast this game, so you gain 7 life and it gets shuffled 7 deep into your library. But then the first one resolves, and the first one says if you cast this from your hand, it only checks if it's from your hand if it's this one, and if you've cast another Approach of the Second Sun this game, doesn't care if it's from your hand or not, then you win the game.
Wow.
So you can drop this down the next turn and potentially win the game off of a single cast.
Now, of course, a little slower than the Saheeli combo we saw not too long ago, but
It's a win combo.
still a win-the-game combo. I mean, anytime Wizard's Prince an alternate win condition, you have to at least recognize it and understand that there are people who will try to find a way to win with it.
Oh yeah.
So,
And if for some weird reason it's
really
not
tough
gonna
to stop, too.
it's not gonna make you automatically win.
Right.
But for added value, if you have the land that lets you make a copy of a spell, because copy is not casting.
right.
But you cast the first one, you get a copy of it, so you gain 7 life. And then if you find a second one, you gain 7 life. Again. And then you win. But if you don't find a second one, you've gained 7 life and then gained 7 life again.
What I like about this card... That's ridiculous. What I like about this card is it just says spell, right? Typically with an effect like this, you would expect it to say potentially instant or sorcery or non-creature spell. They made this
red does that
such that this can go in a creature deck just as much as it can go in a instant sorcery matters deck. For instance, if I play this on turn 6 and then turn 7 I play a 7-drop dinosaur, a Verdant Sun's Avatar, anything like that, I then get to look at the top 7 and cast, you guessed it, another dinosaur.
Yeah.
So this really just is a catch-all, you know. So here's the thing. But I will say this much for the card. This card specifically wants to be in decks with a high CMC.
Yeah.
You're not going to see this in a deck where everything costs 2 or 1 or even maybe 3. Because it itself costs 6, so you already have to get there just to play it. And then, of course, it benefits in much the same way as Vial Smasher, which is to say Vial Smasher, the Fierce, benefits off of you playing high CMC
I could
spells.
put this in Vial Smasher. I think I
Oh,
will.
yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, you could put it in a lower CMC if this is the only expensive thing in it.
Right. This
And
could
you're
be
just going to
essentially...
regularly look at the... It's basically turning into like a Scry 3 of some weird
Right.
form.
I could see this in the same deck that wants to run the land that copies a spell, right? Because imagine you cast a spell, you copy the spell, and then you get another spell. You just played 3 spells off of 1 spell.
Yeah.
That's good value right there.
There is some good value there. Now we get to a card that I've talked a lot about with various people, and there's some varying opinions on it. Settle the Wreckage. So, 2 white, 2. Instant. Exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search his or her library for that many basic land cards, put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. Your thoughts?
This is the card that will stop the dinosaur deck. If the dinosaur deck is not viable in Standard, my theory, I postulate that the reason for that will be this card. Because it essentially takes all of the work that you've been doing to get giant dinosaurs onto the field and says, those are gone now. It stops Carnage Tyrant, it stops, a lot of the avatars. So here's the thing. If you want to pay less mana for something like this outside of Standard, you could pay Holy Day. If you want to pay the same mana for something like this outside of Standard, you could play Comeuppance, which was printed in a Commander-only set. If you wanted to pay more mana for something that didn't give them lands as a drawback to you, you could play Angel of the Dire Hour. What this card does is it essentially gives white a 4-mana way to Aetherize, really. To just say, all of those things that are attacking me aren't attacking me anymore, they're gone.
The exile, I think, is the big part.
That's what makes it a white card as opposed to, it's not, destroying all creatures, it's not bouncing all creatures. They are getting exiled. They're not getting those back very easily at all. They're not going to the graveyard, nothing. The drawback, of course, being the basic lands, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have something to say about that drawback.
Well, I've heard some people say, especially in the Commander context, they said, I don't want to give, especially in Commander, if they're attacking me with like even 5 creatures, even 3 creatures, even if you're getting a 4 for 4, so you have 4 mana, 4 creatures gone, that's 4 land that you're giving your opponent in a game of Commander, and that's not a small thing to consider.
Is certainly not.
And so the issue is this. This card, I can at the very least argue it's going to be situational. You're not just you're going to use this card when you suspect that your opponent has gone all chips in. That especially in Standard, if it's a Dinosaur deck and they've got their Gishath and they're like going in, and you go, how many cards are in your library still? You got no cards in hand? All right, get them gone. Yep. And here's the thing. In Commander, there's some argument whether this can be good or not. I think whether it's good or not, as an attacking player, and I see they have 4 mana up, I have to respect this card.
Right.
And recognize that, okay, they don't have 7 mana, so I can't expect like a Cyclonic Rift or a Rout. But they have 4 mana, I might have to respect to Settle the Wreckage, even though that might advantage me. I have to respect that I have to be more circumspect with my combats. In non-singleton formats, I don't think one of these... I think one of these is questionable. It's the second or third one that's going to break backs. Because I've exiled a board state and given you a pile of land. Oh crap, I've given my opponent advantage. I have... if I'm running hard control, I've got 3 more of these. Have all the land you want. I'm just going to keep wiping everything you play.
The first one is the one that gives them value, and that's only if they have something to do with it.
If they've dumped their hand out too, that's going to be hard to recoup.
Right.
And just...
Well, and it gives them basics, which, as you said, for older formats becomes less and less relevant, because older formats run just dual lands and
I'm actually really interested to see how this card might show up in Modern, Legacy, maybe even Vintage. The problem with Legacy and Vintage is you have to respect Force of Will.
Right.
You have to respect cards that just say no. You have to respect Pact of Negation. You have to respect Force of Will. You have to respect so many things that just say that spell doesn't happen. Right. Mindbreak Trap is another one. But Flusterstorm, like any number of things. So in Legacy or Vintage, that the odds of this card being like automatically good are slightly detracted. Even though, if not for the heavy counter magic, this card would see huge advantage because so few decks in Legacy or Vintage utilize basic lands in any appreciable amount.
Right.
But also the fact of, in Vintage in particular, you're not usually going wide. So this card actually might not be the card you want. Supreme Verdict is probably still the best answer. But in Modern, though...
Yes.
I'd be really curious to see what happens here.
So a couple final thoughts about this. You can use it to exile your own attacking creatures if you need to ramp, especially if you're in tokens. As far as comparing this to something like Wrath of God or Supreme Verdict, you're going to want both.
Or Rout, I think, is the next closest thing.
Here's the difference. There are ways, especially in Commander, for Rout and Wrath of God to not work. Things like Eldrazi Monument, things like Avacyn. If you are getting attacked by a huge field that has an Avacyn out, you're going to want this card. Because that is going to really turn the tables on your opponent. So, all in all, I'd say 4 out of 5, very playable, applicable to maybe different formats, and honestly, I'm really sad it exists. Because that is a darn good answer for Dinosaur strategy.
I think in this scenario, if you're thinking about it for Commander, if you're not going to main deck it, sideboard it for when you sit across from someone who runs Avacyn Commander, who runs like Indestructible Commander, so that you can go, okay, I've got something for you.
Right.
And it's the fact that it exiles is, I think, the big strength. It would be pretty darn good if it said destroy, but in Commander, exile is the ideal removal because Graveyard is so accessible, especially for those of us who like graveyard strategies.
I run E-Witness in just about every deck.
Oh yeah, it's cards over here.
So yeah, all in all, really
I
strong
think it's
card.
good. Now, it can bite you in the butt.
Oh, of course.
Especially if your opponent sends in like 30 tokens in a mono. If you're facing a monocolored deck, I'd be hesitant to pull the trigger on this unless you're about to die.
Well, see, here's the thing. Say your opponent is on Dinosaurs in Standard, and they've gotten to about 5 lands, but, you know, they're kind of just, they've got cards in hand. If you exile all of their, like, 4 power, 5 power, you know, Dinosaurs coming at you, you may have accidentally just given them access to the 7 and 8 drops that they couldn't play before.
Exactly. This, like I said, you don't want to play this early game. This is when you sense when they've gone all in. This is the card you hit your opponent when they have opened themselves up.
Right.
And they're going, do you have it? And you go, yes. And I think in Commander, again, the weakness of this card is any monocolored deck.
Yes.
That's not colorless. Because you're going to ramp... If they're running a 5-color deck, they might not be able to get any land, depending on how they've fetched or ramped. One of my 5-color deck, it has like 6 basic lands in it. I might have gotten them out already.
Yeah.
I might have cultivated in Kodama's Reach and explosive vegetation. It might already be in play. So if you hit me with this, I would just have to go, cool, you got rid of my dudes.
So, final verdict. I think the drawback is not nearly that bad, considering the power that the card offers.
Mm-hmm. The drawback's situationally bad.
Situationally bad for an effect that is basically always good, or at least always something you want to have on hand.
Yeah.
Very main board potential.
Alright. Next rare, River's Rebuke.
Speaking of getting rid of a bunch of stuff.
River's Rebuke. 4 mana, 2 blue, sorcery. Return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand.
Why?
It says sorcery. Went from good board wipe with some drawback to a board wipe that's drawback is intrinsic.
So here's the thing. It's obviously for Commander not going to be better than Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift being an instant and hitting everything your opponents control, not just one person's. So that leads me to believe that this card was made predominantly for Standard, as a way for blue or blue plus decks to have a catch-all answer.
The one problem is it's instant speed, which means they're going to tap out main phase or it's sorcery speed, which means they're going to use it proactively, not reactively, which is not what Control wants to do.
So here's the thing. What if this isn't necessarily for Control? I could see turn 1 Merfolk, turn 2 Merfolk, turn 3 Merfolk, turn 4 Merfolk, turn 5 Merfolk, turn 6 this. All your blockers are gone. All your stuff you've worked for is gone. I still have 5 Merfolk out. How are you going to come back from this?
This is, I mean, it is flavorful because it does have the Merfolk. I think the most important thing on this card is not anything on the rules text of this card. It's the flavor text.
What's it say?
The flavor text says, carefully following the thematic compass Bolas had given her, Vraska blundered straight into the River Herald's trap. So we know that Bolas had given Vraska the thematic compass, and she is using it for some purpose on Ixalan.
So this card is very strong. If I'm playing anything at all, I don't really want to see my opponent cast this spell. I'm glad it's 6 mana, because if it were any less than that, it would be too good. And with Baral and the Amulet, that might just be the case.
It can be 4 mana in the right deck.
Right.
Speaking of Vraska, we have Vraska's Contempt. 2 mana, or 2 and 2 black. Instant speed. Exile target creature or planeswalker, you gain 2 life. It's a limited monocolor Utter End.
And, well, you don't have to lose the life, you gain the life.
Yeah.
It hits planeswalkers.
You hit less things, you're gaining life, and it's monocolor.
And it is exile.
It is, Utter End was exile.
Yeah, that's true. So, the thing you have to compare this to as far as Standard goes is Hero's Downfall. Hero's Downfall was a phenomenal card. 1 black, instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker, just rock solid.
This is 1 more mana.
1 more, which is
exile.
Which is a factor. But it exiles and you gain 2 life. So there's 2 upsides for 1 more mana. So in my mind, this is going to see play.
Oh yeah. Again, some black control is going to have some of this. Then we have Tionali's Skin Shifter. This card's pretty interesting, and as we've said many times in this review, very situation dependent.
This is a card that that asks the player to be creative.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of cards that just do what they say at face value. This card does not do that.
It does not. This is a 0/1 for 2 and a red, so automatically you think, okay.
What's the catch?
It has haste. Whenever Tianali's Skin Shifter attacks, it becomes a copy of another target non-legendary attacking creature until end of turn.
So, this is the way I see this is you have a deck that wants to play 5, 6, 7 drop creatures and doesn't know what to do with itself early game other than ramp. What this does is essentially it says you play this creature early so that it's a cheaper clone effect of one of your bigger creatures later.
Yeah. It goes in your dinosaur deck because it will be a dinosaur after it transforms.
That is true. I mean, it's right there on the card. The art is him transforming into a dinosaur. So.
Alright, then we have the Goring Ceratops.
Did you miss the other one? Or no?
That was a common hiding in there.
Ah.
The Goring Ceratops, it's a 3/3 for 7.
Oh, that's bad. that lightning bolt, though.
It has double strike, so it's a 6/3 for 7. Whenever it attacks, other creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn.
Okay.
It's
So,
still...
it itself has double strike. It gives all your other stuff double strike.
But it's probably gonna live once.
Yeah. So here's the thing. In Commander, just play
once.
just play the 6-drop enchantment that gives double strike and lifelink. Just gosh, I can't even remember what it's called anymore. There are easier ways to do this for Commander, and this is considering what other options 7 mana offers in Standard. This is honestly probably just a junk rare. And the thing is, it has to attack. So even if you know, it itself has to risk itself. And
like I said, it'll probably, because it's giving all your other dudes double strike, they're probably going to throw enough in front of it to make sure this dies so that you don't get that again.
So how I see this card is as a limited finisher.
Yes.
You drop it turn 7, you swing with your whole team the next turn, and you know, maybe that probably gets you the game.
Yeah. Arcane Adaptation, 2 and a blue enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield.
So this applies to your entire collection.
Yeah.
Your whole collection in however many boxes you have. So this is interesting. Why did they print this card?
It's a xenograph. It's a conspiracy.
Right.
That says all your things are a thing, which is good for the tribes, even though it's blue, so it's predominantly going to shift things into a merfolkish territory. But it could be used in other aspects. It could also be used for pirate.
And of course, it goes infinite with that one ally we saw that makes wolves.
Turn Timber Ranger? Yeah.
So here's the thing that's always perplexed me about this style of card. You have to admit to yourself that you're running creatures outside of your tribe that you wish could be in your tribe. So
you want it all!
But then those creatures are only really good if you happen to find this enchantment.
Yeah.
So you're better off, in my opinion, just taking the hit and not playing those things outside your tribe that you wish you could play, so that you don't have to also take up spots running this and hope you run into it.
I mean, it gives you a third copy for your commander deck, so you can run Xenograph, Conspiracy, and this.
So again, I think this is more or less an infinite combo piece, or some manner of combo piece.
Something that this creature that is normally not of the tribe, but lets me go crazy once it becomes part of the tribe.
Like, oh, bro, can you imagine if that were this creature type? And there you go.
Yeah. Then we have Dark... Oh, we do not, because that's an uncommon.
There's right here.
We have another rare hiding out down here. They're scattered in. The Dreamcaller Siren. It's a 3/3 for 2 blue and 2. It has flash and flying. It can block only creatures with flying.
Seems fair.
It's a junk rare.
So what's the final line say?
I thought it was flavor text. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another pirate, tap up to 2 target non-land permanents.
maybe a little better, huh?
A little better, but
This
still, meh.
very, very good for limited. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
So what this does is it's a way for the pirate decks to have some tempo over their opponents, right? So it says tap up to 2 target non-land permanents. What does that mean? It means you can tap them down their blockers, so you can now attack more proficiently. But it also means that on their turn, you could flash it in and tap 2 things they're planning to attack with, which would then probably also still be tapped by the time your turn came around and you could attack with them. So honestly, considering it's a 3/3 flash and flying that you can use whenever you want, assuming you control a pirate, this is a really good card, in my opinion. And it doesn't just tap 1 thing, it taps 2, so it's just a faster mana war. Well, no, mana war bounces.
Yeah.
I don't know what to compare it to then.
Then we have Daring Saboteur. It's a 2/1 for 2, so again we have a Snapcaster in the right colors this time, because it's a 1 and a blue. Pay 2 and a blue, it can't be blocked this turn. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card.
So, it's probably a junk rare.
Yeah.
If you're gonna bother playing 3 mana to make it unblockable, you'd want it to just draw you a card, not loot you a card. Again, it is 2 unblockable damage, which, as we've seen, raid is a thing. As we've seen, on-hit effects are a thing. But ultimately, just really kind of unimpressive. If only because you have to keep paying mana for it to keep being good. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the last of the rares this time.
I'm double checking.
Double check, maybe make sure we got all those artifacts. Lands.
We have 5 rare lands. You may have heard of these before: Glacial Fortress, Rootbound Crag, Sunpetal Grove, Drowned Catacomb, Dragon Skull Summit. Okay, we're done.
Well, are we though? If you look on Rootbound Crag, you will see in the distance a roaring dragon.
Dinosaur.
I was looking at Dragon Skull, so when I said dragon. A roaring dinosaur, which means that will significantly affect the price of the card. For me. I am willing to pay more for that land because it has a dinosaur on it.
Fine, yeah. Technically, we have 2 more mythics in the Planeswalker limited decks.
That is true.
We have Huatli Dinosaur Knight and Jace Ingenious Mind Mage. Huatli Dinosaur Knight is a 4 loyalty for 6 mana. She +2s to put up to... She puts 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target dinosaur you control. Dinosaur counter 1. She -3s target dinosaur you control, deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And then she -7s dinosaurs you control, get +4/+4 until end of turn. Dinosaur.
For each time. No.
Dinosaur.
Yep. Yeah. Four instances of the word
we could
dinosaur.
say narrow. If we were being less kind, we could say parasitic. She deals with dinosaurs.
She looked good, though. Jace, Ingenious Mind Mage, is the one of the few Jaces in Wizards history to have been named by Jace himself. Jace submitted the idea for the name, and it was approved by, the people at Wizards who name cards. He's a 5 loyalty for 6. His +1 says draw a card. Pretty straightforward. His other +1 says untap all creatures you control. Also pretty good. And his -9 says gain control of up to 3 target creatures. Just permanently. All in all, actually not that bad.
Of the starter Planeswalkers, he's actually,
potentially the best.
Yeah, one of the better ones that I have seen.
So he comes in with 5 loyalty, so that's pretty beefy. I mean, 6 mana.
And he beefs up to 6.
Yeah, and then he
all that working out on the deserted island he did is paying off.
Well, in Standard, being able to use him every single turn to draw a card, essentially getting 2 cards a turn, that's, not insignificant, right? And then you can also +1 to untap all creatures you control, which, the reason for that being that you could attack with them and you would still have blockers to protect him, since, blue doesn't really have vigilance to do that for it. His -9 actually is worth working toward. Gain control of up to 3 target creatures. That can completely swing a game in your favor.
Give me that Gishath.
Yeah, Gishath and 2 other things. Honestly, of the Planeswalkers we've seen in the pre-constructed decks, probably the best.
Yeah. Yeah, arguably, he's definitely one of the better ones that we've seen.
So do we have other rares that go along with this?
We have Grasping Current. It is a sorcery for 4 and a blue. Return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. Search your library for and/or graveyard for a card named Jason, Genius Mind Mage, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle it.
A 5-mana sorcery to bounce 2 is pretty decent and limited, but the chances of you pulling this card in the limited pool are very non-existent.
Yeah. The Sunblessed Mount.
Ooh, it's a really nice looking card. The art is great.
It's 5 mana, 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you search for Huatli Dinosaur Knight. That's all it does.
Yep.
That's what it be.
Unfortunately, if it could search for either Huatli, I'd be tempted to play it.
Search for a Huatli Planeswalker? Yeah, that'd be good.
That would be alright. But as it is, just not going to have any really kind of impact in Standard, so... Nope. Alright, that's the rares from Ixalan, which... It felt like there were a lot.
There were a lot!
I mean, just even with our previous video and then this video, there's just a lot of rares.
Or a lot of discussion on said rares. Because
That's true.
The rares were both simple, but all of them were worth talking about with like 1 or 2 exceptions. That were like... There are very few rares in this set that I would consider objectively bad just looking at them in a vacuum.
And honestly, not many of them seemed parasitic either. A lot of the Kaladesh rares relied on their own mechanics or synergies from within the set. This seems pretty
a lot of the cards
source.
A lot of the cards in this set are very self-contained. They don't need other things. Some of them do, and those are the ones that we frowned upon the most.
Right.
Because it didn't kind of mesh with the overall feel of these cards are very self-sufficient. There aren't a huge amount of rares in this set that I'm like, I want that card. I want to do something with that card. But there's a lot. Most of the rares in this set are cards where I can look at it and go, that card isn't garbage.
So I'll say this much for the set as a whole as we wrap up this video. I've noticed a lot more excitement from the players that I know personally, as well as the players online for this set. Yeah. I think that they really knocked it out of the park with this one with regards to flavor and art and mechanics. But not only that, but the mechanics actually relate to the flavor of the set. Enraging a dinosaur makes sense, right? And pirates wanting to steal things from your opponents makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you have, you know, a set that the flavor and the mechanics go hand in hand, in addition to just being something we haven't done before, which is to say, you know, pirates and dinosaurs, or, you know, white vampires or green merfolk, it's a very kind of exciting time for Magic players to get their hands on something that feels, you know, truly unique, right? Something we haven't seen before. So I'm very excited about this set. And another final thought, I think this set will be very good for Limited.
Oh, the Limited environment, because all the cards are very self-contained, again, not very parasitic. It's kind of like a very different, we haven't seen a set like this in some time. I read somewhere on the internet, there was a guy, he said he's been playing Magic casually since 1994. And he's like, this is the first time I've been excited in a long time to play Standard. And a lot of people are thinking that this might be the set that came back. Now, we'll see if that actually holds true, because a lot of people said the same for Kaladesh, but then we had a very problematic Standard.
Yeah, a lot of bannings had to occur.
The set looked amazing, but it was too good.
Yes.
There were things in there that were too powerful, and that just became oppressive. And that was actually the really sad thing, because I remember when we were reviewing Kaladesh, we're like, there's so much diversity, you could do so many things, but the problem is there were like 4 cards that were just that much better, and so all the other good cards became irrelevant.
Right. That's the danger with the Standard format, or a lot of the formats, is that the best of the best cards are what ends up getting played, and if those cards are truly too powerful and difficult to answer, then
that was the big problem.
Restricts the Standard format.
That was the big problem, and in this set I'm seeing lots of answers to pretty much everything that can be played.
Right. I mean, unsubstantiate. Return target spell or creature to its owner's hand for 1 and a blue. That's significant card.
With the exception of, you know, the Implacable Death Lizard.
Which is just so hard to answer.
It's just...
I'm gonna pre-order 4 foil. just gonna hang it on my wall and just be like, that's it. That's what every green creature that ever gets printed from now on has to live up to.
Well, you had your other moment of glory with the what was that card?
Which one was
From
it?
the commander set.
Oh, right. I can't remember which one you're talking about, but I have vague reminiscences, so... Another time, perhaps.
So there you have it. We have finally reviewed the mythics and rares of Ixalan.
And it only took 3 hours.
It only took 3 hours to do so. So we'll... Do you think we're going to come back and do the commons and uncommons?
The commons and uncommons in this set are not mechanically complicated. I think they're fairly straightforward. There's tons we could talk about certain synergies, things where, you can rage with this effect, or, you can, you're gaining life, so that means X, Y, Z. A lot of the commons and uncommons are pieces to essentially oil what your rares are trying to do.
Okay, let's real quick just glaze over and pick,
Sure.
like cherry pick a few.
Yep.
Because I know some are being talked about, namely unclaimed territory.
Perfect set for this card, perfect card for the set.
Uncommon land, not legendary, just land. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You can tap the land to add a colorless to your mana pool, or you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type. Are you running Commander? Are you running Tribal Commander?
I'm pretty sure I saw a version of this card online that had the Ixalan set symbol stamped behind the text, which, if that's the case, sign me right up.
Alright, so what else we got? We have Pirate's Cutlass, which is a common equipment. When it enters the battlefield, attached to target pirate you control, gives it +2/+1. It's pretty good.
Good and limited for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got...
So the one that springs to mind for me, there's this 1-drop red... Is it instant or sorcery? It deals 1 damage to a creature you control and then draws a card. So it's literally
Rile.
Rile. It's a specifically rage enabling card. Enrage enabling.
We'll find
Which,
that.
And then it cantrips. So that excites me.
I love artifacts, so Pillar of Origins is actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, Pillar of Origins and Sentinel Totem both are just...
Pillar of Origins is a 2 mana. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Add a mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend the mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type.
So it's ramp for tribal.
Absolutely.
And I mean, honestly, if you're running a tribe that has at least 3 colors, that's a golden card.
So, Sentinel Totem is a strictly worse Relic of Progenitus.
Like we didn't have enough graveyard hate in this set.
Because it's a 1-drop. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 1.
Right.
And you can tap it, exile all cards from all graveyards.
So, I mean, it only costs 1 mana. It does exactly what you want it to do.
It's a strictly worse Relic of Progenitus. You're
Right.
not able to repeatedly get rid of a
Right.
card. It doesn't draw you a card when you crack it.
Correct.
It does scry you a card once.
Right.
But it doesn't cost mana to crack.
That is true. It doesn't replace itself. It doesn't cost mana to crack.
Honestly, I don't see it replacing Relic.
No, but it is good that it's in standard.
Oh, absolutely, because it lets you just go, there it goes.
Right.
The Dusk Legion Dreadnought. The art is amazing, because if you look carefully, it's not just a boat, it's a freaking cathedral.
Which, very fitting.
It's on a boat.
A cathedral on a boat.
But it's a 5 mana 4/6 with Vigilance and Crew 2. That's good.
That's
a good vehicle.
4/6 Vigilant Crew 2?
You know what's not a good card?
What?
The Elaborate Fire Cannon. 2 mana. It doesn't untap during your untap step.
Oh boy.
At the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard a card. If you do, untap it.
It's madness.
What does it actually do for you?
Nothing.
Pay 4 mana, tap it. Elaborate Fire Cannon deals 2 damage to target creature or player. I think if we're going to add to the shrine, Razor Boomerang has a new friend.
Yeah. I would also put Flamecast Wheel up there.
Oh yeah, right. It's just a card that is
just
bad.
So,
the Vanquisher's banner we've already talked about. We'll keep rolling up.
Now.
Sky Terror.
Okay, now I like Sky Terror.
It's good. This is why Boros Dinosaur is probably going to be a thing.
Here's my thoughts with this. We did dragons not too long ago, if you recall, from the dragon set that had dragons in the name. It was about dragons. at no point did I see them find a way to print a low cost like 2 mana dragon. Cheapest you're really gonna find is like the Whelp, which is like a 4 mana, I think. I was thinking, you know, that maybe they'd have like a human dragon, like some kind of hybrid, right? So where they could justify making it cost, you know, a red and a green or something like that. This, for dinosaurs, do not suffer the same restriction that dragons do, that dragons essentially have to cost
big
a significant amount of mana. Dinosaurs, being dinosaurs, can just cost whatever's on the spectrum that makes sense. This, we have a red and a white, so just Boros colors, which I like every card that's ever had red and white on it at the same time. It's a 2/2 with flying and menace. 2 keywords, 2 power, 2 toughness, 2 mana.
This sucker's going to go places, namely over people's heads and past their blockers.
I mean,
to their life total.
Even if they have flying, they still have to put 2 blockers in front of it. Now, it's probably not going to trade very profitably, but it comes down on turn 2, and what this card essentially does for you is it says, until you kill this, you're taking damage every turn.
This, in Limited, is going to be the Watchwolf.
Yes.
Because if you pull a bunch of these in Limited, you're going to win.
That's really all you need. Just drop 5 of those things and call it a day.
Alright, so we have the strictly weirder Zamek Guildmage, which is the Shapers of Nature. A 3/3 for 3, Simic colors in 1. You pay 3 and a green, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. You pay 2 and a blue, remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control to draw a card.
Right. Again, the activated abilities just cost so much mana that it's probably not going to see a lot of play. What could see play is Call to the Feast.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
If it costs 3 mana, it costs Orzhov and 2. Sorcery, create 3 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink. If it costs 3...
You have to pay the extra for the keyword.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
That's what I think.
You know what's probably going to see play? The Belligerent Brontodon.
You think so?
Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, and it's a 4/6.
I mean, yeah, but 2 of the dinosaurs I know I want to play are 7/6s, so...
This is true.
It opens up a different kind of archetype. Now, this, the Dire Fleet Captain, very possible. It doesn't have menace, but it's a Rakdos, so a black and a red for a 2/2. It says whenever Dire Fleet Captain attacks, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each other attacking pirate.
Yeah.
Certainly a good beater. We saw something similar with the Akroan Hoplite.
It's the Goblin Pile Driver for pirates, is what it is.
Kind of. Without the protection from blue. That makes it super good.
We also have the Infuriated Gladiodon. It's
the Enabler.
It is a 5/5 for 5, so we have equity. It has Trample, so it's already better than equity.
3 red and a green, so Gruul.
And when it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each other creature. Triggers Enrage.
Okay, here's why I like this card. A, it triggers Enrage. I think that's the obvious part. What's the not obvious part is you'll remember that not too long ago we were talking about a 1 and a black 2/1 pirate with menace that seemed pretty good because every time he attacked you could pay 2 mana to get another pirate. This does not stop the pirate tokens that get made, the 2/2s with menace, but there are lots of pirates, 2/1s with menace, 3/1s with menace, that this does kill. Not to mention, it also sweeps away the vampire tokens with lifelink. If this doesn't see play in the main board of dinosaur decks, it will definitely see play in the sideboard to come in against low to the ground aggro decks. Because, I mean, this thing could theoretically kill as many as 2-3 creatures on your opponent's side of the board with no negative side effects to yourself.
Yeah, very true. Alright, let's see. We have...
His biggest problem is that he's going to be contending for the same slot as Regisar Alpha, so unless you just want to play both, you're going to pick the Alpha.
Alright, so one thing that is important to note is there are some really good commons in this set.
Spell Pierce.
Spell Pierce.
No, please. I don't.
It's going to happen.
Gosh darn it.
Another control piece. Here we go.
How am I supposed to fight for 1 mana if you make it cost 3 mana anyway?
Yeah, exactly. So... we also have Legion Conquistador, which is a new Squadron Hawk. It's not evasive. It's a 2/2 for 2 and a white, but when it enters the battlefield, you tutor your deck for any number of cards with the same name of it. and put them into your hand.
I mean, that's just good. I mean,
It's a common,
yeah.
so in limited, if you draft a crap ton of them, just go, hey, look.
Yeah, I mean, you pay 3 to essentially draw 3 cards. They're 3 specific cards.
No, but in limited, it could be more than 3. You could load a hand of these guys.
That's true.
And you don't have to get them all at once.
There is one thing I wanted to mention. There are multiple effects in the set that reduce the cost of dinosaurs. Or the
Yes, Kinjali's Collar being a good example.
Yeah, Kinjali's Collar, 1 white, Dinosaurs you cast cost 1 less to cast. She's a 0/3, so she's a good blocker. There's also 1 in a green that taps for mana of any color, which is essentially a ramp spell. The one that I think is the best is 1 in a red. He says, he's a creature, a human. He says dinosaurs you cast cost 1 less to cast. You can also tap him, I believe, to give target dinosaur you control haste. So here's why he's better. If you're thinking about running dinosaurs and you're looking at your ramp options, here's why I think he's better than the other ramp options available. So the 1 in the green that taps for mana of any color, super good, right? Lets you play any enchantments, any sorceries, any instants, any dinosaurs. Really good. But essentially all it does is it speeds your dinosaurs up by a single turn. They come out 1 turn sooner. The 1 in the red that makes them cost 1 less also brings them out 1 turn sooner, but then he can give whatever big dinosaur you just played haste, right? So then they're attacking 1 turn sooner than they could have attacked. So all your dinosaurs are essentially coming in 2 turns sooner.
Because they're doing business 2 turns.
Yeah, they cost 1 less, so they're coming down 1 turn sooner, and then they're attacking 1 turn sooner than they otherwise could have.
Yeah.
So in all reality, I think that the 1 in the red human, I forget his name, sorry, will be a incredible boon to the dinosaur deck.
Alright, so we have Ryle, which you mentioned earlier. 1 red, sorcery, deals 1 damage to target creature you control. That creature gains trample until end of turn, draw a card.
Right.
So it triggers your enrage and it cantrips. That's pretty darn good.
And I mean, the trample's not irrelevant either.
We have Duress coming back.
Yay. At least it's non-creature. At least they can't just duress my gift out of my hand.
You know what this set could use? I agree very much with the Professor. This set could use a blue spell, a blue reprint, a spell that is not legal in Modern but will be after it's printed in Standard. A cantrip, something from 15 years ago. Oh look, we have Opt.
There it is.
It's scry 1, draw a card for 1 blue.
Instant.
Instant.
End of
so
their
you can
turn.
do it end of their turn. Bloop.
I didn't need to
There
bounce
you go.
anything this turn. I guess I'll draw a card instead.
Yeah, pretty good.
So there is one more dinosaur worth mentioning, and you alluded to it earlier. I don't know if we can find it. But there's I believe it's a 2/3 for 3, 2 in a green. And its enraged trigger says, when it takes damage, you search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the field tapped.
Yes.
So how do you feel about running that as opposed to, say, a 3-drop ramp spell?
It depends on how reliably you can trigger Enrage. Or get it into combat and have them block it. Or
Right.
just have
Or
it be
just
a
use
block.
it as a blocker, right? So if you're fighting off against unblockable Merfolk or, flying things, not nearly as good. Or if you're facing off against removal that's not damage removal, but exile or destroy, again, not as good. So the risk that you're taking is that you might not get any land out of it, which, of course, as a ramp spell that can fail, pretty bad. The pluses that you're getting is it's a dinosaur, so anything you have that cares about dinosaurs also, you can get it off Gishath, that can cost 1 less, etc., etc. And the other advantage being that there's the potential to get more than 1 land off of it, which is, also... So
Yeah.
It'll be a really kind of... I think we'll need to see how the meta shakes out to see if it's playable or not.
Now, what's absolutely playable in every deck is the Shorekeeper.
Is it a Trilobite?
It is a Trilobite. It begins. Trilobite.
Oh, there's a whole cycle of these
keepers.
Pay 8 keepers, right?
Yeah, you can pay... It's a 1 blue for a 0/3. So you're already getting value off of the mana.
Right.
And then you take all of that value, find some more value, and you throw it away. You pay 7 and a blue and sacrifice your Shorekeeper to draw 3 cards.
I mean, it's not terrible, especially limited. There was one card right down here. That is a flavor win.
Swashbuckling.
So there's a card called Goblin Warpaint. It's a 1 in a red aura that says the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 in haste. They could have just reprinted Goblin Warpaint. It wouldn't make any sense. They could have had like a, goblin on a pirate ship or something.
There are
but
pirate goblins in this set.
They did the right thing. The right thing was to, in their pirate set, print a card called Swashbuckling. That was the right thing to do. And they did just that.
Yeah.
1 and a red, the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 in haste, and it's a Swashbuckler.
We also have an active treason. It's called Hijack.
Yeah, well, actually, Hijack is a reprint.
Oh, really?
Of a card from Conspiracy, I believe. Or no, not Conspiracy, I'm sorry. Yeah, target artifact or creature. This is actually a reprint of a card from Kaladesh, which is interesting. That means when Kaladesh rotates out, Hijack will not.
Interesting. Let's
Can
see.
take their ship.
We've got...
Very flavorful. There is one card I wanted to mention that we did not mention. You'd mentioned a reprint of Lightning Strike. There is, in addition to the energy removal spell, another card vying for that spot. And that's Abrade. Abrade says 1 and a red, either deal 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact, which, depending on how the meta shakes out, could be more relevant than Lightning Strike being able to go to face.
We have Demolish being reprinted at common. We have a Fog effect, Blinding Fog, instant 2 and a green, prevent all damage that will be dealt to creatures this turn. Creatures you control gain hexproof, so it's not combat damage.
So
just protects your creatures.
I don't think that's probably not going to see play, if only because Heroic Intervention is in standard right now. Permanents you control are indestructible and gain hexproof, or creatures, I believe.
We have Colossal Dreadmaw, a common 6/6 for 6 with trample.
We all knew it had to happen.
We have Cancel.
Yep. The old gold standard for standard.
Let's see. We have
There's the Lightning Strike.
We have Costly Plunder, which is pretty good. It's a strictly better Altar's Reap. It's an instant for 1 and a black. As an additional cost to cast Costly Plunder, sacrifice an artifact or creature.
So
draw
just
2 cards.
Just a treasure token, really.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's the Lightning Strike.
That at Zokan Hunter his bow looks amazing.
Yes. Ixalan's Binding. It's a strictly more expensive O-ring. It's 3 and a white.
Right.
When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Ixalan's Binding leaves the battlefield. But what you're paying for, that 1 extra, is your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. So it Reflector Mages, but removes it.
So here's the toughness with this. It's going to have to compete with Cast Out, which is an instant, that could also cycle when it's not relevant. So that is going to be a very tough fight. Trove of Temptation. I believe this is a card worth talking about.
Yeah, 3 and a red. Enchantment. Each opponent must attack you or a planeswalker you control with at least 1 creature each combat if able. At the beginning of your end step, you create a treasure token.
Right. So essentially, it's a ramp spell as much as red can ramp. It gets you a mana every turn. The really interesting part is, of course, the first line where they have to attack you. Now, it says each opponent, so obviously with multiplayer formats, it'll affect that more. The reason that's good is because they have to attack you whether they want to or not. And so if you have either like a Kazul Tyrant of the Cliffs or just a really fat blocker to where that could essentially turn into a kill spell to where now they're losing stuff because they have to make bad attacks against you.
You know what wouldn't care about that? The Adanto Vanguard.
What does he do?
It's a 1/1 for 1 and a white. As long as Adanto Vanguard is attacking, it gets +2/+0.
Dang, that's good.
Pay 4 life. Adanto Vanguard gains indestructible until end of turn.
Why? Why would they do that?
It's an uncommon vampire soldier.
Why is this happening?
It's pretty good.
It's not bad.
Pretty darn good. Raptor Hatchling, which is the card that my wife will draft every single one of.
That's the 2-drop dinosaur. Well, there's more than one. But...
It's a 1 and a red for a 1/1. It has Enrage. Whenever it is dealt damage, so it's going to die, create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. Every little hatchling has a parent's claws to guard it.
It's really interesting. It's a 1 and a red 1/1 dinosaur that's designed to then die and give you a better... So if you really think about it, what you're trying to do is pay 1 and a red for a 3/3 green dino with trample. Right? And of course there's the possibility Enrage could fail, but that's pretty unlikely, because who's going to spend exile on a 1/1? So, yeah, it's not a bad card.
No, it's not. It's a good wall, too, to prevent other aggro decks from coming at you. Do you want to give me a 3/3?
And the one right next to it, Snapping Sailback? Quite a surprise in the limited environment.
It's a 4/4 for 5 with Flash. Enrage. When it is dealt damage, you put a 1/1 counter on it.
So, best case scenario, you kill one of their attackers, and then you now have a 5/5.
Yeah, and,
right?
it's bigger.
Right. So, for 5 mana? Here's the problem. A lot of the dinosaurs in the set are actually 5 mana. So it's the fact that it has to compete with so many other things, it's not... I doubt it's going to see standard competitive play.
Yeah.
As much as
it just doesn't do enough.
But in limited, though, draft this every time.
Oh, yeah. Talking about bombs and things that begin with B's.
Oh, jeez.
Bishop of the Bloodstained.
So many bees.
Do you like vampires?
I mean, I'm liking them more now than I used to.
Do you like Grey Merchant of Asphodel?
No, I do like Grey Merchant of Asphodel.
How would you like to have another one?
Gosh darn it, why?
Because Bishop of the Bloodstained is a 3/3 for 5 mana. When he enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life for each vampire you control.
This is just so dumb. Because, I mean, you've already got, what, the 4-drop one that says whenever you attack with a vampire, they lose 1 and you gain 1. Like, turn 4 that guy, turn 5 this guy.
Bleed!
Now you'll notice, very distinct difference here. Grey Merchant of Asphodel was a 2/4. This guy...
It's a 3/3.
3/3. More aggressive, more able to attack.
Yes. But, yeah, that's the thing. We have a Chupacabra.
That makes me really happy. That. You're going to want to mention that.
The Stomp.
Oh, yeah.
Savage Stomp costs 2 less to cast if it targets a dinosaur you control. It costs 2 and a green, so it would cost a green if you target a dinosaur.
Single green for a fight spell.
Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then that creature fights another target creature you don't control.
Okay, so quick breakdown on this card, just because I have a thing or two I'd like to say about it. Nature's Way from Kaladesh is potentially the best green removal spell that has ever been printed, as far as creature removal, right? Of course, you've got Beast Within, you've got Croson Grip. We're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about stuff that says, deal with a creature. Nature's Way, 1 of the green sorcery, target creature you control gains Vigilance and Trample till end of turn, deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So no risk of them also killing you. Here's why I'm playing Savage Stomp over that card. A, it can cost, a single green, which, of course, the mana efficiency there is real. B, it can trigger Enrage. Nature's Way cannot trigger Enrage because the dinosaur you're fighting with isn't taking any damage. Furthermore, it puts the +1 counter on there, so they're bigger permanently. And of course, if you've been listening, Otopek Huntmaster was the 1 in a red creature I was referring to earlier.
So we have Slice and Twain, another reprint, instant, 2 and 2 green, destroy target artifact or enchantment, draw a card. Ranging Raptors is the one you were talking about. When it enrages, you get land.
That just seems like a good card to me.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Let's see.
Charging Monstrosar is
5/5, trample haste for 5.
Not solid stats. The reason I pointed out is because it was drawn by Zach Stella, the same man who drew Gishath. And before the card was spoiled on Mythic Spoiler, he actually showed me the art of it on his phone at the GPDC. So I feel a certain connection to that card as I got to essentially see the art ahead of time.
Let's see, what do we got here?
He said it. I think he said it had already been spoiled at like HasCon or something, so he was allowed to show it to me. He wasn't breaking any rules, but still feels pretty special.
So we have Grim Captain's Call, and I'm gonna point it out because it's strange. And by strange, I'm not sure what I feel about it. It's a sorcery for 2 and a black. Return a pirate card from your graveyard to your hand, then do the same for Vampire, Dinosaur, and Merfolk.
There's nothing that brings people together like being dead.
But what deck is going to be running all of that?
A very fun deck. I have a challenge for you, James. I want you to show Gary Watts this card and not have him build a deck because of it.
But, it's just like...
It's
I don't know.
just so weird. Well, because A, you have to return a pirate. So if you don't have a pirate to target, you can't even cast it.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to at least be playing pirates. Ooh. There it is.
Arcane Adaptation. Everything is a thing.
Arcane Adaptation. Everything's a pirate.
So the goal is to run 4 arcane adaptations and make
Right.
everything a pirate, dinosaur, vampire, and merfolk.
Yes. And then once you've done that, you can literally just play Captain Skull to draw 4 cards every turn. Pay 3, draw 4, pay 3, draw 4, pay 3, draw 4.
What are we even doing? What is this? Scrolling up, let's find all the commons and uncommons that were hiding amidst our...
Oh yeah, they were kind of up here and...
Deadeye Quartermaster is actually pretty darn good. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment or vehicle card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library.
It's no Stoneforge mistake.
It's a 2/2 for 4. It's a pirate that finds a ship.
I mean, if you should just pair it with the pirates who are looking for a ship, and you'll have one happy crew.
Siren Storm Tamer, we're not going to talk about you because you're the one who tricked us the first time. Yeah, that's all of them.
There we go. There is one card we forgot to mention. Carnage Tyrant.
Yeah, Carnage
It's
Tyrant.
a 7/6 for 6 with can't be counter trample and X.
It's pretty good.
not bad.
So what's your opinion on this card?
I'm going to play it.
Okay.
As a 4-of in every deck I ever make for the rest of it.
You know, I've heard it said that Sun Empire commanders are well versed in advanced martial strategy. Still, the correct maneuver is usually to deploy the giant implacable Death Lizard.
If this card has a promotional art, I will pay just so much money to acquire it. Just so much money.
Alright, so in the way of wrap-up, stepping aside from the fact that you obviously are going to be getting all the dinosaurs,
I'm going to be pretty
what
regular.
cards are you most stoked for in this set?
So,
Like, on a card-by-card basis.
right. So are we excluding dinosaurs or including dinosaurs?
Well, I think the dinosaurs has kind of been set.
Yeah. It's I've more or less said that,
Like, singular... Because the dinosaurs is kind of a collective.
Yeah.
I'm talking singular cards.
So that's really interesting. I mean, obviously, of course, there's the Gaia's Cradle, the growing rights of Idlamag that, essentially turns into the Gaia's Cradle. I see that being an incredibly useful tool to kind of fuel the dinosaur deck. Turn 2, drop the Huntmaster, turn 3, growing rights, find a dino to play, then maybe a 5-drop, that then costs 1 less if the Huntmaster is still alive. But as far as, like, individual cards are concerned, I think the one that excites me the most is Shaper Sanctuary. For those who don't know me, which is everyone watching this video, my commander, the one for me, is Surrak Dragonclaw. And that's because I like to play creatures, and I like to win with creatures. If I can choose between winning by attacking with creatures or winning with an infinite combo, I'm going to choose creatures every time.
Or not even infinite combo, just spells or other things.
Spells, mind over matter, you name it.
Anything that involves spells and winning.
I prefer to win in every format with creatures. That's just kind of an element of my identity as a player. So here's the thing. I play Surrak because I don't want my creatures getting countered. When I put 8 mana into a creature, I don't want someone paying 1 or 2 mana to deny me that creature. It's just, it feels bad, they got the better end of the deal, and it stops me from doing what I wanted to do. Shaper's Sanctuary essentially says, you can do whatever you want to my stuff, but I'm going to get value off of it.
Yeah.
Right? Shaper's, when I first saw, it was one of the first cards I saw with the, the accidental, leak that came out before, and I've been excited for it ever since then, right? Because you take this card to where it doesn't actually do anything. If you think about it, there's nothing active or proactive about it. It's just, you just drop it on turn 1 or turn later and say, okay, we just have an agreement to where you can deal with my stuff, but I'm gonna get more stuff if you do. So I would say it's Shaper's Sanctuary.
For me, Sunbird's Invocation caught my eye, just because it's good. But for me, this set doesn't have like a card that's like, this card is going in this deck.
Right.
Sunbird's Invocation is probably the closest one like that to me, but I want to get as many of the cards that transform, and I want to put them in a deck. I would like to build a more casual Land Matters deck at some point, something that's kind of maybe a little goofy, but can still actually win in some weird ways.
Right.
And the transforming cards seem to be great enablers for that kind of idea. And a lot of them synergize with each other. Like, some of them make creatures, and others care about that.
Yeah.
And then some of them draw cards, others care about that too.
Right.
So it's not just each one in a vacuum enables itself. They all do, but some of them also enable each other. So I want to build a deck that has a bunch of things that flip into stuff.
Right. So with Sunbird's Invocation, the most appealing part about it is I think it says when you cast.
Yeah, whenever
the initial
you cast.
spell you cast does not have to resolve for you to get the trigger.
Correct.
And same thing, you know, with that made the Eldrazi so powerful. Essentially, you can counter it, but you're still going to get the on-cast effect. It's expensive, it is, but that's because it's really stinking powerful. And I could see you playing that. I know you don't play red much, but I could see that being a big reason for you to find a way to include red in one of your decks.
It's actually why I wore the red shirt today, is because as you know how color works, you absorb all the colors, and the one color that it gets reflected back is what you see. I have absorbed all the colors but red, so you're seeing red because I use it the least.
Oh, I didn't think that.
That's
I just wore this because I like random.
Because you are red.
Yeah, yeah. Because I saw a 2/2 flying in menace for 2, and I was like, this seems pretty good. Granted, I can't actually play him because I have to play dinosaur cheapening effects at that level.
Yeah. I mean, Settle the Wreckage is one that looks interesting for me. The new Vraska looks interesting.
Yes.
All the Transform cards I think are probably my favorite.
Yeah, the Transform cards are...
The flavor of them is so strong.
You're getting 2 flavor in 1. You know,
Yeah.
every flip card has, you know, double the flavor, double the fun.
Some of them literally have double the flavor text.
Right.
So it's really great. I would be tempted to build a janky standard deck that runs all the non-legendary ones, just to try to get as many of them out for... I don't even know what the payoff would be. I don't even care what the payoff would be. I just want to do it.
Well, I listened to Mark Rosewater's Drive to Work podcast, and one of the things he had mentioned multiple times...
while you're driving to work?
I listened on my way home. One of the things he mentioned is that when he first went to do flip cards in Innistrad, the original Innistrad, that he got fought about it a lot because, you know, the back of a Magic card is something that hadn't really been touched or explored since the dawn of Magic.
Yeah.
Right? But now we have a situation where these cards transform and they're not werewolves, right? He essentially opened up, through his own persistence and you know, belief in his idea, you know, new grounds for Magic design.
Literally new lands.
Yeah, new lands for Magic design. So to see the transform mechanic come back in a way it's just on a few cards. It's not on like 30, but it's on like, you know, 5, 10, something like that. Very exciting as a mechanic.
It would be really curious to build like a weird 5-color deck that had like a commander deck that had every transform card printed with it.
That would be very, very cool.
Spicy.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any legendaries that Oh, no, there's Uruk the Krowling Horde, but then you'd be limited to green, red.
But no, they've already posted ways to if you use Liquid Metal Coating, March of the Machines, and then like 1 or 2 other cards, you can turn or it's like Liquid Metal Coating, March of the Machines, and Xenograft. So Liquid Metal Coating turns everything into an artifact.
Yep.
March of the Machines turns all artifacts into creatures. Xenograph says all those creatures are a certain type, and you name human. And then you cast Moon Mist to transform all humans.
What even happens?
So all your land artifacts or whatever, and your enchantments just turn into whatever they're going to turn into.
Oh.
You don't have to do the work, you just flip them. Granted, you've probably, in some cases, done more work than you would have had to.
Yeah, but it's fun.
But you just flip them.
Then Ixalan comes out and you're like, no, dang it! Not Ixalan! Oh, man.
But, yeah, so Ixalan. Love it, hate it, let us know in the comments. We'll see you at the pre-releases and various other events. Yeah, it's been a while since we did this. I'm glad we escaped Ixalan. Don't ask us for any spoilers of what's going to happen next.
No. We've been told nothing. But we'll be
We
exploring
were too focused,
that later.
Yeah, we will explore it later. We were too focused on getting off the plane to, like, find the plot.
There were a lot of snakes on that plane.
Where?
I mean, in the bushes, at least.
I mean, in the bushes. I heard there were supposed to be quaddles. I haven't seen any.
Well,
we didn't see any.
Didn't we see some in the art for favorable winds, or was that...
Yeah, I heard that there were favorable winds.
Huh.
But, and, you know, in, when you're stomping on one.
Right,
right,
yeah,
but,
that's true.
No quaddles.
No quaddles.
And we're in, like, an Aztec-y themed plane, so I'm like...
I wish I could go on a quest for a quaddle, like a Quetzalcoatl. That'd be... Just... I think that's all I got.
On that bombshell, it's time to end.
I will. I'm gonna make sure all of my opponents are Dinosaur. Got nothing.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Have one on me.